a quiet welcome to Restful Historian. Tonight, our story takes us into the world of the entire life history of a medieval peasant from birth to death. Before we begin, if you find value in these stories, perhaps take a quiet moment to like the video and subscribe. It helps others find the channel. You can also let me know in the comments where you're listening from and the time. It's always fascinating to see our quiet community grow around the world. Now, find a comfortable position, dim the lights or turn on a soft fan for background noise, and let's ease into tonight's story together. Our tale unfolds softly, like a new leaf unfurling in the gentle spring sun, within the humble, mud-daubed dwelling of a small English village known as Oakhaven. The year, if such a concept held much meaning to those living by the rhythms of sun and soil, was around 1362, a time long past, wrapped in the quiet mists of history, long before the grand castles we imagine. It is here, amidst the quiet stirrings of a new day, enveloped in the comforting scent of wood smoke from the steady hearth and the earthy aroma of damp rushes that covered the floor, that a tiny life, a baby boy destined to be named Thomas, took his very first hesitant breath. His arrival was not met with loud cheers or grand pronouncements echoing through stone halls, for such grandeur was far from their simple world. Instead, it was greeted by a deep, silent relief from his young mother, Ilara, her body weary but her heart full, brimming with a gentle, protective love. Beside her, the knowing, gentle hands of old Agnes, the village wise woman, moved with practiced ease. Agnes, with her gnarled fingers and kind eyes, had ushered many new souls into this world across decades, her presence a familiar comfort passed down through generations of Oakhaven women, a quiet guardian of new beginnings and a quiet witness to life's earliest moments. The air was often cool, even inside, with the chill of dawn, and the warmth of the small, new body was precious, cherished against the broader world. The walls of their simple home, crafted patiently from interwoven branches and carefully plastered with a mixture of mud and straw, held the precious warmth of their small family, a fragile shelter, yet strong against the wind and rain. A single, narrow opening in the wall, too small to be called a true window in our modern understanding, allowed only a soft sliver of outside light to filter in. This light, though meager, was enough to paint hazy patterns on the packed earth floor and illuminate tiny dust motes that danced serenely in the cool, still air, like tiny stars in their own small cosmos. For little Thomas, his world at first was a small, warm cocoon, a place of soft shadows, comforting sounds, and familiar smells. He knew the steady, comforting thump-thump of his mother's heart close against his tiny ear as she cradled him, swaying gently, a rhythm more ancient and soothing than any lullaby. He learned the sweet, vital taste of her milk, a gentle warmth that filled his tiny belly and brought a soft contentment, a primal sense of security that spoke of love and sustenance. The rough, yet familiar, texture of the homespun linen that wrapped him tightly against the chill became his first sense of security, a constant, soothing touch against his tender skin, a barrier between him and the cool air. He would feel the subtle shifts in his mother's breathing, sensing her calm presence. Beyond this immediate circle of warmth and touch, soft, distant sounds began to weave into his consciousness, slowly forming the tapestry of his early world, a symphony of their quiet village life. The low, almost musical murmur of their milk cow, tethered patiently in its small, fenced enclosure just outside the hut, its breath warm in the morning air, a soft, steady companion. The soft, contented clucking of a few scrawny chickens, their gentle scratching and clucking a familiar sound near the doorway, like quiet whispers, always seeking hidden morsels. And, perhaps most constant, the rhythmic, steady thud of his father, John, working patiently with his axe against wood, preparing fuel for the hearth or materials for simple repairs, a sound of quiet industry and steadfast provision that grounded their days. His older sister, Margaret, a child herself, barely old enough to fully grasp this new, demanding presence, would often peek at him with wide, innocent eyes, sometimes reaching out a tentative, sticky finger to gently touch his soft cheek, a curious whisper of connection between siblings, a first tentative step towards shared life. The smells were distinct too, each a memory, the sharp tang of smoke from the hearth, the sweet scent of new hay in summer, brought in for the animals, the damp earth after a refreshing rain, the comforting aroma of bubbling stew from the cooking pot. Being a baby in these ancient times was a very delicate journey, a path filled with unseen challenges and quiet dangers. Unseen sicknesses, little understood and without clear names, moved silently through the villages, often taking the youngest lives too soon, like tiny candles snuffed out by an unseen breeze, leaving empty arms and aching hearts behind. A simple cough could deepen into something fearsome and unstoppable. A small fever could lead swiftly to a sorrowful goodbye, a profound grief that touched every home. Yet, Thomas possessed a sturdy little body, resilient even in its infancy, a testament to his innate strength, a quiet gift from fate. And through the unwavering, tireless love and careful tending of Ilara, he gently endured, a small fighter in a demanding world. She nursed him closely, kept him warm with layers of cloth and blankets, and shielded him as best she could from the lurking dangers, her love a protective shield. He learned to move, first by pushing himself up with surprising strength against the rough floor, then by crawling with steady purpose on the cool, packed earth floor, his small hands exploring every stray piece of straw, every smooth, round pebble that found its way indoors, tasting them, feeling their rough or cool textures against his tongue and fingers. His first steps were wobbling, uncertain moments, filled with his own soft gurgles of delight, as he slowly ventured a little further from the hearth's immediate warmth, discovering the simple wonders of their small, quiet home, a universe of fascinating details. He might peer out the doorway, watching the clouds drift by like slow, gentle ships, or see the sunlight dappling through the leaves of a nearby tree, casting dancing shadows. The sensation of crisp, cool air on his face, the taste of early wild berries, the soft buzz of a bee, these were his initial connections to the vast, open world. As Thomas grew a little bigger, passing from the soft blur of infancy into the slightly more defined world of toddlerhood, his world ever so slowly began to open up, like a flower sensing the sun and gently unfurling its petals. The worn threshold of their hut became a boundary he eagerly crossed, a gateway to gentle adventures just beyond his home. His little bare feet, quickly toughened by countless steps over uneven ground, grew used to the winding, sometimes muddy, paths of the village, paths worn smooth by generations of footsteps, leading him to new discoveries. The simple, well-trodden track that wound its way through Oakhaven became his grand avenue of discovery, a winding path of endless fascination, leading to new sights and sounds, the quiet murmur of voices from another cottage, the distant bleating of sheep in the pasture, the gentle rush of the nearby stream, its soft gurgle a constant background sound. The other thatched-roofed cottages, huddled together like ancient, wise mushrooms under the vast sky, felt like gentle friends in their small, close-knit community, each one a familiar, comforting sight, home to familiar faces. He would often gaze, wide-eyed and full of quiet wonder, at the vast, peaceful fields that stretched far, far away to the horizon, a boundless green or golden sea depending on the season, where his father and the other men of Oakhaven toiled patiently under the big, open sky, their figures small against the immense landscape. He would see the village animals, the lean dogs that roamed freely, their tails wagging gently, the wandering pigs rooting in the soil with soft grunts, the ever-present chickens scratching for grains with their soft clucking, all moving in their own quiet rhythms, part of the living landscape of his childhood. He learned to recognize the village elder, the miller by his dusty clothes, the quiet weaver by her steady hands. His days were filled with observation, absorbing the unspoken rules and routines of his world. Childhood then wasn't quite like it is now, with its long stretches of carefree play and a bounty of bright, specialized toys brought from distant lands. By the tender age of 5 or 6, Thomas's small hands were already becoming accustomed to gentle, useful work, a natural extension of his growing body. He learned to assist Margaret in the never-ending, yet quiet, task of gathering fallen branches and twigs for the hearth, their small bundles a vital contribution to the family's warmth and the cooking of their simple meals, their small voices sometimes whispering secrets as they worked. He would be sent to gently shoo away the bold sparrows and persistent crows from their small garden plot, guarding the precious, emerging sprouts with a quiet diligence, his small voice making soft shooing sounds that were more like gentle invitations than deterrents. He learned the difference between a berry that was safe to eat and one that was not, a crucial lesson passed down through generations, taught with gentle warnings and simple rhymes. Play was not an organized activity with specific crafted toys, but an organic, natural outgrowth of their surroundings, woven into the fabric of their daily life, found in every corner of their world. He might fashion miniature boats from pieces of bark to float in puddles after a soft rain, watching them drift on their tiny voyages to imaginary lands, or gently chase after the skittish piglets that sometimes escaped their enclosure, giggling softly as they darted away, their tails wiggling with playful delight. He would sit, spellbound and quiet, perhaps with his cheek resting against the rough but smooth wood of the hut, listening intently as older children shared simple tales of mischievous, tiny woodland sprites hiding in the nearby trees, or recounted hushed stories of the distant, mournful cries of wolves from the deeper, shadowed parts of the ancient forest, tales that filled the quiet evenings with a sense of wonder and slight, delicious trepidation, a thrilling whisper of the unknown. The earliest lessons were absorbed through observation and imitation, a silent, humble apprenticeship to life itself, rooted in the rhythms of nature and human effort, a deep, practical knowledge that sank into his very being. As Thomas moved from the immediate, sheltered world of his small hut into the wider, more demanding sphere of childhood and early youth, his responsibilities began to deepen and broaden like the roots of a young tree. The relentless, yet gentle, turning of the seasons dictated the very breath of life in Oakhaven, a grand, unspoken calendar. He quickly learned and deeply internalized this ancient rhythm, feeling its cadence in his own small, growing body, a silent language understood by all who lived by the land, a language of survival and promise. He understood the hard, hopeful work of spring, when the heavy, damp earth was gently turned with ox-drawn implements, often guided by his father's steady, strong hands, the rich, clean scent of freshly overturned soil filling the air with the promise of new life. Precious seeds, saved carefully from the previous harvest, were carefully scattered by hand into the freshly turned furrows, each one a tiny act of profound faith, a silent prayer for future sustenance, a promise whispered to the earth from generations past. He knew the long, sun-drenched days of summer, when the young crops demanded constant, careful tending, gentle weeding to remove hungry competitors that would steal nourishment, patient protection from tiny insects and larger animals, and the quiet waiting for the grains to swell and ripen under the benevolent sun, their heads bowing gently in the breeze, heavy with their bounty. Then came the frantic communal effort of autumn, the time of harvest, the culmination of all their year's labor. This was a season of intense labor, yes, but also a brief, joyous period of relative abundance and shared celebration, a deep comfort in knowing there would be food, at least for a while, to sustain them through the coming cold, a feeling of quiet triumph. And finally, the stark, sometimes harsh, winter, when the cold seeped into every crack of the hut and into their very bones, and the quiet threat of hunger gnawed at the very edges of their existence, demanding resilience, patience, and a deep, quiet hope for spring's slow return, a period of quiet endurance. He would, of course, begin to notice the young women of Oakhaven with a growing awareness, a gentle curiosity stirring within him. Perhaps shy glances, quick and fleeting, would be exchanged during communal tasks like the harvest, where laughter sometimes broke the hard work, or at the annual fair, a rare, fleeting burst of gentle festivity and a chance for quiet flirtation, a gentle stirring of new feelings and possibilities. Or during the shared, often light-hearted, tasks of the harvest, where young men and women worked side by side, their hands brushing accidentally as they reached for a sheaf of grain, a simple touch that could hold a universe of unspoken thoughts and quiet hopes. Courtship, however, was rarely a romantic idyll as we understand it today, with whispered vows and grand gestures under moonlit skies. It was a practical affair, often influenced by the careful considerations of families, concerning the gentle consolidation of land, the addition of strong, willing labor to a household, or the avoidance of burdensome dowry payments, ensuring a stable future. A young woman who was a good worker, came from a respectable family, and showed promise of bearing healthy children was highly valued, her qualities speaking volumes in their quiet, pragmatic world, ensuring the continuity of the family and the village itself. The future of a lineage rested on these quiet decisions, woven into the practicalities of survival and the deep desire for family. Thomas's marriage, when it gently came in his late teens or early 20s, was a significant threshold, a quiet transition from being a son under his father's roof to becoming the head of his own new household, a fresh thread woven into the ancient tapestry of Oakhaven. He would likely marry a local girl, perhaps a distant cousin from a neighboring croft, whose family shared similar struggles and joys, or someone from a closely tied family within Oakhaven itself, whose face had been familiar to him since childhood, a gentle continuity of life and kinship, a bond formed by shared experiences and a common understanding of their world. The union would be blessed by Father Michael in the quiet village church, a simple ceremony of vows exchanged softly before the altar, of hands joined in solemn promise, pledges of faithfulness in life and in labor, followed by a modest, yet deeply joyful, gathering. Perhaps a special, lightly spiced ale would be brewed for the occasion, its aroma mingling with the hearth smoke, filling the air with a festive scent. A communal stew, enriched by shared contributions, would be prepared with care, and a few precious instruments, a simple pipe or a steady drum, played softly to mark this important moment, their notes drifting gently on the evening air, a quiet celebration. The entire community would gather, sharing what little they had, offering their kindest wishes for a fruitful and gentle union, for children to bless their home and ensure the future of their line, a collective hope for continuation and growth. The wedding day, though simple in its outward display, with no grand finery, was a beacon of hope and connection in their demanding lives, a quiet testament to enduring human bonds and the steady promise of a new generation. The choice of a spouse in medieval peasant life was rarely one of grand romantic gestures, but rather a practical, gentle alignment of families and resources. It was a union born of necessity and shared purpose, yet within it, deep affection and quiet love could blossom, like a hardy wildflower in a well-tended field. The families would have quietly negotiated, perhaps over cups of weak cider or a simple meal, discussing dowries, often a few hens, a bolt of linen, or a small patch of land, and the shared labor that the new couple would bring. Thomas's bride, perhaps Agnes, was likely familiar with the rhythms of peasant life from her own upbringing, her hands accustomed to the needle and the loom, her back to the tending of the garden, her spirit to the quiet endurance required of women in their world. Their wedding ceremony, though humble, was rich in symbolism, binding them not only to each other but to the very fabric of the community and the sacred traditions that had sustained generations. The exchange of rings, often simple bands of iron or silver, was a quiet promise of fidelity, a silent pledge to weather life's storms together. The communal feast, humble as it was, emphasized the collective support and shared joy, reminding the young couple that they were not alone but part of a larger, sheltering whole. Every villager present understood the profound significance of this new household forming, a fresh root delving into the ancient soil, promising new life and continuity for Oakhaven. His adult life now began to unfold as a direct reflection of his father's and his father's father before him. A steady, quiet rhythm of relentless toil in the fields, deeply intertwined with the profound responsibility of providing for his own growing family. He became a devoted husband, learning the quiet compromises and deep affections of partnership, the unspoken understanding that grew between two people sharing such a demanding life, a bond that deepened with every shared hardship and every small joy. Then he became a gentle father, a constant, steadfast figure against the ever-changing backdrop of the seasons, his presence a quiet strength for his little ones, their protector and guide. His wife, perhaps named Agnes, echoing his grandmother's cherished name, a name that spoke of resilience and quiet strength, would lovingly bear several children over the years, some arriving swiftly, others after long, quiet hours of labor, attended by the village wise woman. Each birth was a moment of profound significance, a tender gamble against the high infant mortality rate that quietly shadowed every family, a desperate hope for another pair of small hands to one day help with the endless work, another soul to carry on their name and lineage, a fragile thread of immortality. He would mourn those tiny ones who did not survive, silently, stoically, a deep, quiet sorrow carried within, a heavy but familiar burden that many in the village shared, as was the way of their world, a sorrow shared but rarely spoken aloud, understood through shared glances of empathy. The small, often unmarked, graves in the churchyard were a constant, quiet reminder of life's fragility, a gentle presence in their community, blending back into the earth. As the years gently passed, Thomas and Agnes settled into the comfortable rhythm of their shared life, a dance of duty and devotion. Their small hut, once quiet, gradually filled with the sounds of children's laughter and cries, their tiny forms a constant reminder of the profound purpose of their union. Thomas would watch his children grow, their small hands slowly learning the tasks that would one day become their own life's work. He would patiently teach his sons to handle a hoe, to identify the different types of soil, to read the subtle signs of the weather in the clouds. He would observe his daughters learning from Agnes, mastering the art of spinning wool, preparing meals over the hearth, and nurturing the younger ones. These lessons were not spoken lectures, but learned through quiet observation and patient repetition, instilled by example rather than instruction. The children were their future, their inheritance, the tangible embodiment of their hopes and dreams. Each child who survived infancy was a triumph against overwhelming odds, a fragile victory against disease and scarcity. The quiet grief for those they lost was a shared burden, a silent understanding passed between Thomas and Agnes through knowing glances and gentle touches, a sorrow that softened over time but never truly faded. The churchyard, with its humble, often nameless mounds, was a somber, yet familiar, part of their landscape, a quiet place of connection to those who had come and gone. The rhythm of his days was dictated by the gentle rising and setting of the sun and the pressing, tender needs of the land, which governed every hour. Plowing in early spring, the heavy, damp earth clinging patiently to his rough boots, smelling of fresh beginnings and the promise of growth, the cold wind might bite his face, but the sun's returning warmth brought a deep, quiet hope that renewed his spirit. Sowing precious seeds, carefully saved from the previous harvest, casting them with a broad, practiced, gentle sweep of his arm, watching them fall onto the dark, prepared soil, whispering silent prayers for good weather and a bountiful harvest, each seed a tiny act of profound faith, a humble commitment to the future. Weeding under the unforgiving summer sun, his back aching, sweat gently on his brow, sometimes stinging his eyes, yet he persisted, driven by the quiet knowledge that every weed was a hungry mouth competing for their sustenance, every effort crucial for survival, a quiet, ceaseless battle. Then came the frantic, communal, exhausting, yet strangely satisfying labor of the harvest, a time of intense physical exertion that unified the village. Every able body, from small child to wise elder, joined in the frantic, shared race against time and the impending autumn rains, swinging scythes with rhythmic precision, binding sheaves with practiced movements, loading carts until they groaned under the weight of the golden grain. The fields, once a place of solitary labor, became a humming hive of activity, filled with the quiet chatter and shared fatigue of the community, a powerful sense of unity and shared purpose. Threshing in the barn during the cooler autumn and winter months, the rhythmic, soft beat of flails echoing gently through the cold, still air, a comforting sound of winter industry, separating the precious kernels of grain from the light, dry chaff, a process that demanded patience, strength, and a steady hand, ensuring their winter provisions were secure. This ceaseless cycle of labor was not merely work, it was a profound act of faith and survival, a sacred dance with the earth. Thomas knew the land intimately, its moods and its demands, its gentle generosity and its harsh indifference. He could feel the promise of rain in the heavy air, predict the coming frost by the quiet stillness of the evening, and discern the health of a young shoot by the subtle hue of its leaves. His hands, gnarled and calloused, were extensions of his will, tools shaped by years of interaction with soil and wood and stone. Each season brought its own unique challenges and satisfactions. Spring, with its gentle awakening, filled him with quiet optimism. Summer, though arduous, saw the land bursting with life under his diligent care. Autumn brought the joyous, though exhausting, culmination of their efforts, a time of communal striving and shared bounty. Winter, with its biting cold and barren fields, was a period of quieter tasks, mending tools, telling stories by the fire, and preparing for the renewed cycle that would surely follow. There was a profound beauty in this repetitive existence, a deep satisfaction in seeing the fruits of his labor, knowing that his quiet efforts directly fed his family and sustained his community. His life was a testament to the enduring power of human resilience and the simple, undeniable dignity of honest work. His work was not confined to the wide, open fields, for a peasant's life was one of constant, varied tasks, an endless round of small duties and resourceful improvisation. He would spend countless hours in the small family plot near their hut, gently tending their kitchen garden, coaxing hardy cabbages, pungent onions, and nourishing root vegetables from the soil that would supplement their humble, grain-based diet, a small, vital source of fresh food and flavor. He would mend fences with quiet care, patching holes in the wattle and daub of their hut or animal enclosures, ensuring the animals were safe and warm. He would repair tools with a steady, practiced hand, patiently sharpening his scythe or fixing a broken hoe handle with new wood, a task of quiet satisfaction. He contributed to the communal maintenance of the village tracks and small bridges, ensuring their shared pathways were sound and safe for all, a duty willingly undertaken for the good of the community, an act of silent cooperation. Life was a constant process of quiet improvisation and careful repair, making do with what little they had, a gentle ingenuity born of pressing necessity and limited resources, a profound understanding of self-sufficiency and the value of every scrap. There was no waste, every scrap was repurposed, every thread saved, every resource valued and utilized fully. Every thread of their existence was woven from ingenuity and careful management. Thomas understood the true value of every resource, for it was directly tied to their survival. A broken tool wasn't simply discarded, it was painstakingly mended, its life extended through his quiet persistence. A worn tunic wasn't thrown away, it was patched, turned into rags, or eventually used as stuffing. Nothing was truly wasted. He might spend evenings by the flickering light of a rushlight, crafting simple traps for small game to supplement their diet, or carving wooden spoons for his growing household. His knowledge of the local woods, the properties of different timbers, and the habits of the small creatures was vast and intimate, gleaned from years of quiet observation and practical application. He was a master of self-sufficiency, his hands and mind constantly engaged in the myriad tasks necessary to sustain his family. This constant engagement, this gentle dance with scarcity, fostered a deep respect for their surroundings and a profound appreciation for every small comfort they managed to secure. The communal spirit of the village also played a crucial role in these small, everyday tasks. If a neighbor needed help raising a new roof or clearing a particularly stubborn patch of land, Thomas would lend his strength, knowing that in turn, they would offer theirs when his own family was in need. This unspoken agreement, this quiet reliance on one another, formed the bedrock of their community, a testament to their shared struggles and their collective resilience. The small joys that quietly punctuated his arduous life were profoundly simple, yet deeply cherished, like rare wildflowers blooming unexpectedly in a sparse field, bringing unexpected beauty. The satisfying, earthy crunch of fresh-baked bread made from their own carefully harvested grain, eaten warm from the hearth, its aroma filling the small hut, a taste of their own hard labor and a profound comfort. The lovely warmth of the hearth fire on a brutal winter's night, its flickering light dancing softly on the mud walls, casting long, peaceful shadows, making the small space feel vast and safe. His children huddled close, their breathing soft and even, a haven from the biting cold and the vast, dark world outside, a protective circle of warmth. The soft, sweet sound of his family's laughter, a gentle melody in the quiet of their home, echoing softly in the small space, bringing warmth to the heart and lightness to the spirit. The shared meal of a rare piece of cured meat or dried fish, a small luxury to savor slowly, each bite a moment of quiet gratitude for a small blessing, a simple feast. The communal festivities on holy days, Christmas, Easter, and the various saints' days, when work paused and the village gathered for simple feasts, perhaps a shared, gentle dance to the tune of a rustic pipe or a simple drum, their rhythm joining hearts, or the telling of ancient, comforting stories around a communal fire, tales of saints and heroes, of strange beasts and hidden treasures, bringing a touch of wonder and enchantment to their lives. These were brief, precious respites, moments of gentle celebration that sustained the spirit and wove threads of warmth and connection into the demanding fabric of their lives, strengthening their quiet community and reminding them of shared humanity. These moments of simple joy were the threads of gold woven through the plain fabric of their days, making the whole tapestry shimmer with quiet beauty. A child's first step, a particularly vibrant sunset over the fields, the sudden flight of a flock of birds against the pale sky, these were the small miracles Thomas savored. He found profound contentment in the warmth of his wife's hand in his, in the steady rhythm of their breathing as they slept beside him, in the unspoken understanding that flowed between them. Sundays and holy days were precious, a gentle reprieve from the endless toil. The quiet pilgrimage to the church, the familiar scent of incense, the calming drone of the priest's voice, the shared sense of devotion, these moments offered solace and a quiet reaffirmation of their faith. Afterwards, the communal gatherings, though humble, were vibrant with human connection. Stories would be shared, news from distant villages exchanged, often distorted and embellished, and the simple joys of song and dance would momentarily lift their spirits above the everyday struggles. These were the moments that fortified them, reminding them that even in hardship, there was beauty, connection, and a deep, abiding sense of belonging. The rare treats, a roasted apple, a handful of berries from the forest, or a piece of cheese, were savored with a quiet reverence, each bite a testament to the earth's bounty and their own hard work. But quiet challenges were an ever-present companion, woven into the very tapestry of their existence, like persistent shadows that lengthened with the setting sun, reminding them of life's precariousness. The gentle rumble of hunger during a poor harvest, when the granary was nearly empty, and stomachs rumbled with a constant, quiet yearning, a hollow echo in the quiet hours that made sleep difficult and thoughts turned to the meager food stores. The pervasive, quiet fear of pestilence, a nameless dread that could softly sweep through the village, carried on the very air, stealing loved ones with frightening swiftness, much as the great Black Death had done to many before him, leaving quiet sorrow and empty places in its wake, a silent grief that touched every home and left its mark. The gentle, yet firm, demands of the Lord's bailiff, who would carefully extract taxes in precious grain, in labor on the Lord's domain, or in meager coin, often leaving precious little for the peasant family, a burden carried with quiet resignation and a deep sense of powerlessness, for there was no arguing with the Lord's will, only quiet acceptance. The distant whisper of danger from roaming bandits or the occasional isolated soldier, though less common in Oakhaven's peaceful corner, was always a faint, unsettling sound carried on the wind, a gentle caution that life could be brutally interrupted, that peace was a fragile thing easily shattered. A constant, underlying awareness of the profound fragility of life, handled with quiet strength and an enduring patience, for this was simply the way of the world, accepted without complaint. The seasons of plenty were brief, often fleeting, like a summer storm, the seasons of scarcity long and demanding, testing their endurance and their quiet resilience. The shadow of uncertainty was a constant presence, a gentle reminder that their lives were lived on the very edge of subsistence. A sudden, unexpected storm could flatten a season's crop, leaving them vulnerable to famine. A contagious illness, appearing like a thief in the night, could decimate a family, leaving behind only quiet desolation. The demands of the Lord were an unyielding force, a constant drain on their meager resources, and resistance was unthinkable, carrying the heavy price of eviction or worse. Thomas understood his place in this rigid hierarchy, a tiny cog in a vast, unchanging machine. Yet, he also understood the power of collective resilience. When hardship struck, the community would pull together, sharing what little they had, offering comfort and support. They were like reeds in a strong wind, bending but rarely breaking, drawing strength from their unity. The dangers beyond the village walls, though rare, were a quiet threat that added another layer of apprehension to their lives. Yet, through it all, Thomas faced these challenges with a quiet fortitude, a deep well of patience and a steadfast spirit that refused to be extinguished. His life was a continuous testament to the enduring human capacity for hope and survival in the face of profound adversity, a quiet narrative of strength and unwavering perseverance. As Thomas gently entered his middle years, the lines etched on his face deepened softly, like ancient rivers carving paths through a weathered landscape, telling quiet tales of countless suns and winds, of gentle worries weathered, and of deep, abiding strength forged by enduring decades of toil and perseverance. His hands, once so powerfully nimble, the very tools of his livelihood, were now a little gnarled, the fingers stiff and sometimes aching from decades of gripping tools and working the unyielding soil, each joint a small ache that he carried with quiet dignity. His back, once straight and tireless, now carried a perpetual, gentle ache, a silent companion of his relentless labors, a constant reminder of the physical demands of his life, a testament to the weight he had carried for his family and his community. Yet, even with these burdens, he was a seasoned man, full of quiet wisdom, knowing the land deeply, intimately, feeling its pulse and rhythms, and holding the gentle, enduring strength that comes from a life lived so very close to the earth, attuned to its every whisper and nuance, understanding its moods and its enduring secrets. He had seen countless seasons turn, witnessed the cycle of life and passing repeat itself peacefully and endlessly within Oakhaven, observed the subtle changes in the landscape, the growth of new trees, the erosion of a path by years of footsteps, the rebuilding of a hut after a storm, the shifting patterns of the clouds, predicting weather with silent certainty. He had seen his own children grow into strong, capable adults, marry, and begin their own lives, establishing their own small households, and perhaps even had the quiet joy of holding his grandchildren, their small, eager faces a gentle, poignant reminder of his own youth and the continuing promise of life, a sweet continuation of the circle of generations. His place in the community would gently shift, evolving with his age and experience. No longer just a strong laborer, though he would always contribute with what strength he had, his quiet presence would now be that of an elder, his experience and quiet wisdom deeply valued and sought after. Younger men, perhaps his own sons or nephews, might softly seek his advice on the best time to plant a particular crop, learning from his years of observation and subtle intuition, or how to gently mend a stubborn plowshare that had defied their own efforts, relying on his patient expertise and practical knowledge. He might be asked to sit with the village elders, a small group of kind, respected men who helped sort out little disagreements with quiet thoughtfulness, offering counsel rather than judgment, their voices calm and steady, guiding the community towards peaceful resolutions. They made decisions about shared tasks, like repairing the village mill after a flood or clearing a new path through the woods for better access, though always gently guided by the Lord's ultimate wishes, whose distant authority was ever present, a silent understanding. He would become a living repository of Oakhaven's quiet history, remembering the gentle quirks of old villagers long gone, the outcomes of harvests from many years past, the lean ones and the bountiful ones, comparing them in his mind, and the subtle, slow changes in the beloved landscape over the decades, a walking history book for his people. His memory was a gentle, living archive, a whispered narrative of their shared past, connecting generations to their roots. He carried the wisdom of generations in his quiet observations and patient understanding, a precious legacy passed down without words. The changes in the world beyond Oakhaven would likely be slow and almost imperceptible to Thomas, like distant ripples on a calm pond, barely disturbing the surface of his daily life, a distant hum rather than a roar. News would travel softly, often a little distorted by distance and rumor, arriving months after the events, if at all, like whispers carried on the wind, half heard. The rise and fall of faraway kings, the quiet echoes of distant wars across the sea, the gentle stirrings of new laws from the distant courts of the land, these would often manifest only as a new tax burden, heavier or lighter, to be borne by the villagers, a different bailiff with a slightly different set of demands, or a new, gentle request for service or goods, perhaps for the Lord's distant manner, felt more as a change in daily routine than a grand political shift. But the deep, peaceful rhythm of his life remained steadfastly rooted in the soil, bound by the familiar, comforting dance of the sun, the moon, the stars, the seeds, and the harvest, a cycle that had governed their lives for centuries and would continue long after he was gone. His world was local, immediate, and profoundly connected to the earth beneath his feet, a universe contained within the fields and forest around Oakhaven, a complete and self-contained world. He would have known periods of profound, gentle contentment, moments when the weight of toil lifted and the simple beauty of existence shone through, clear and bright, like sunlight breaking through clouds. A particularly bountiful harvest, meaning a little more food in the storage for the long winter, a cushion against hunger, a slightly warmer fire in winter, a rare and cherished comfort that allowed for deeper breaths and longer nights of sleep. The deep, quiet joy of seeing his children healthy, strong, and capable, building their own families and continuing the cycle of life in Oakhaven, knowing his efforts had paved their way and ensured their future. The simple, profound pleasure of a clear, starlit night, vast and silent above, the Milky Way a shimmering ribbon across the dark sky, free from the worry of impending storms, a moment of vast, quiet wonder that humbled him. the quiet camaraderie shared with his fellow villagers during communal efforts, a sense of belonging to something ancient, enduring, and gently supportive, a shared purpose that transcended individual struggles and bound them together in a quiet strength. The soft peace of an evening spent by the hearth, listening to the gentle crackle of the fire, its light flickering across the faces of his loved ones, the soft, even breathing of his family around him, perhaps a grandchild asleep in his lap, their tiny hand held in his gnarled one, a scene of quiet domestic harmony and enduring love, a picture of tranquil contentment. The church continued to be a constant, comforting presence, a steadfast anchor in their lives, providing a framework for understanding their place in the universe and the purpose of their days. The familiar, soft Latin chants during Mass, understood through repetition and feeling rather than precise meaning, their sound a gentle balm for the soul, the gentle scent of incense that lingered in the cool stone air, carrying prayers aloft. The sacred rituals that had marked every gentle step of his life, from his tiny babyhood baptism to his marriage vows, would continue to offer a peaceful framework for understanding their existence and their place in the divine order, a comforting pattern in an unpredictable world that brought a sense of stability. A quiet respect for faith and a gentle hope for a blessed salvation were deeply ingrained in his very being, shaping his moral choices, guiding his actions, and providing soft comfort in a sometimes challenging world, a light in the darkness. Confession, the quiet acknowledgement of sins and failings before the gentle priest, gentle tasks of penance to atone for transgressions, and the enduring hope of a blessed afterlife brought a profound sense of peace against the steady struggles and uncertainties of their earthly days. The priest's gentle words of guidance and the shared prayers of the community offered solace and a sense of enduring order in a world of uncertainties and unpredictable forces, a quiet assurance of something larger than themselves, a divine plan that embraced all. As old age truly settled in, wrapping Thomas in its gentle, inevitable embrace, his body, once a robust and tireless instrument of labor, would begin to gently tire and betray him, responding less keenly to his will, a slow yielding to the relentless march of time. The aches would become more constant, a persistent, dull companion, making his movements slower, more deliberate, each step requiring quiet effort and a steadying hand on a rough wooden staff. He might suffer from persistent, gentle coughs in the damp, cold winters, the chill settling deep in his bones, making breathing a little more difficult, a shallow, quiet struggle, or the grinding, soft pain of worn joints that made every rise from a seat or every step a thoughtful consideration, a small internal battle of will against physical limitation. His eyesight might dim a little, blurring the familiar faces he loved, making the details of the world softer, more indistinct, and his hearing might softly fade, making the sounds of the village a little more distant, like echoes from another room, a gentle withdrawal from the busy world, a quiet turning inward. Yet, even in his slowing years, he would still find ways to contribute, his quiet purpose unbroken, a steadfast spirit within a weakening form. Perhaps gently tending the small kitchen garden when the weather was fair, his old hands still knowing the feel of the soil, guiding young shoots with tender care, a quiet, continuing act of creation. He might mend simple things with his still nimble fingers, repairing baskets or nets, or quietly care for his younger grandchildren, a calm, warm presence, sharing his quiet presence and telling them the same soft, ancient stories he had heard as a child, tales of simple folk and enduring faith, connecting them to their past, passing on the threads of their history. His mind, though, would remain clear and bright, a beacon of quiet wisdom, filled with the gentle, rich knowledge of a life lived so very close to the earth, attuned to its every whisper and nuance, understanding its moods and its enduring secrets, a deep well of experience. This gradual deceleration was not a sudden descent, but a soft, almost imperceptible drifting, like a boat slowly losing its momentum in a calm harbor. Each new ache, each slight tremor in his hand, Each moment of breathlessness would be met not with despair, but with a quiet acceptance. Thomas, having lived a life tethered to the unyielding rhythms of nature, understood that everything had its season. Just as the strong oak eventually yielded its leaves to winter, so too did his body, once a vibrant vessel of strength, begin its gentle preparation for its final rest. He would observe the subtle changes in his own reflection in a still pool of water, perhaps a slight stoop in his shoulders, a network of gentle lines etched around his eyes that spoke of countless sunrises and sunsets, of deep laughter and quiet sorrows. These were not marks of defeat, but of a life fully lived, a silent testament to the long journey he had undertaken. He would spend more time in quiet contemplation, sitting on a worn wooden bench outside his humble cottage, feeling the sun's gentle warmth on his face, listening to the familiar sounds of the village, the distant bleating of sheep, the soft clatter of a blacksmith's hammer, the gentle murmur of children's voices at play. These sounds, though sometimes softened by his failing hearing, were a comforting symphony, a reminder of the vibrant, continuing life around him, a life he had helped to nurture and sustain. As his physical world gently contracted, his inner world seemed to expand, becoming richer, more vivid. Memories, like old friends, would visit him often, bringing with them the scent of freshly tilled earth, the warmth of his wife's hand in his, the joyous cries of his children. He would recall the arduous days of harvest, the communal spirit that bound them together, the simple satisfaction of a good day's work. He might remember the quiet beauty of a spring morning, the dew-kissed fields shimmering under the rising sun, or the hushed reverence of a Christmas Eve service in the old church, the scent of pine and beeswax filling the air. These recollections were not tinged with longing for what was lost, but with a quiet gratitude for what had been. He understood that his life, though seemingly small in the grand scheme of things, was an integral thread in the vast, intricate tapestry of existence. His quiet presence, his steady hands, his knowing gaze, had all contributed to the enduring life of Oakhaven, a village that had known countless generations just like his. He was a living bridge between the past and the future, a quiet guardian of traditions and stories, a vessel of memory for his kin. He would have quietly witnessed the passing of his peers, the familiar faces from his youth slowly disappearing from the village, one by one, like leaves falling from an old tree in autumn, leaving empty spaces at the hearths and in the communal gatherings. He would have known the deep, quiet sorrow of losing his beloved wife, Agnes, her absence a constant, gentle ache in his heart, a quiet space that could never quite be filled, a silent testament to their shared journey and the profound bond they had forged over decades. Perhaps, too, he would have endured the unspeakable, quiet grief of seeing some of his own children precede him in death, a profound and sorrowful experience absorbed into the long, winding fabric of his life, a testament to the unpredictable nature of their existence, for life was a fragile gift easily lost. Each loss, though deeply felt, was ultimately accepted as an inevitable part of the gentle, relentless cycle of existence, for life and death were two sides of the same coin in their world, always present, always understood. The village burial ground, a simple, peaceful plot of hallowed ground near the ancient church, would grow ever more populated with the names of those he knew and loved, a quiet tapestry of generations laid to rest, sleeping beneath the gentle earth, their spirits at peace. Each passing brought with it a renewed sense of the fragility and preciousness of life, yet also a deeper understanding of the enduring cycle. He would attend each funeral, his presence a quiet comfort to the grieving families, his eyes reflecting the shared sorrow and the quiet acceptance that permeated their community. He would remember the laughter, the shared meals, the silent camaraderie forged over years of working the same land. The village, in its quiet way, would mourn together and then, with gentle resilience, continue its daily rhythms, knowing that life, in its profound simplicity, must go on. He might linger by the graves, running a gnarled finger over the simple wooden markers, a quiet gesture of remembrance and connection, acknowledging the silent company of those who had gone before him. These quiet visits were not morbid, but a way of keeping the beloved dead close, integrating their memory into the fabric of his continuing days. He believed, as did most in Oakhaven, that the spirits of their ancestors watched over them, a gentle, invisible presence that offered comfort and guidance from the other side of the veil. His understanding of death was not one of fear, but of natural progression. It was simply the next step, a quiet return to the earth from which they had sprung, and a gentle journey to the eternal embrace of their Maker. He had seen too much life, too much birth and growth, not to believe in a profound connection between existence and transcendence. His faith, simple and unwavering, provided him with a profound sense of peace. It was a faith rooted in the changing seasons, in the dependable turning of the stars, in the quiet wisdom of the ancient trees, and in the enduring love of his family and community. He had seen miracles in the simplest things: the first green shoots of spring after a harsh winter, the sudden warmth of the sun on his face after a cold rain, the innocent laughter of a newborn child. These were the true wonders of his world, and they affirmed his belief in a benevolent force that governed all things, a force that held both life and death in its gentle hands. His final years would likely be spent within the same familiar, comforting walls where he was born, embraced by the gentle warmth of his extended family, his surviving children, his numerous grandchildren, and perhaps even the tiny, soft presence of great-grandchildren who now carried the steady burden of labor and the vital continuity of life, their presence a gentle comfort, a living testament to his enduring line. He would be looked after with tender care, his needs met by loving hands, his presence a comforting anchor for the family, revered for his wisdom, his patience, and the long, enduring journey of his life, a quiet patriarch. He might sit for long stretches by the hearth, his eyes gently closed, listening to the soft sounds of his descendants going about their daily lives, their quiet chatter and busy movements a gentle backdrop, their soft breathing a comforting lullaby, a symphony of continuing life. In those moments, he would quietly reflect on a life that, while lacking in grand material wealth or widespread fame, was profoundly rich in experience, in quiet strength, and in the deep, abiding connection to the land and the beloved community that had nourished him from his first breath to his last. He had fulfilled his purpose, lived his days with quiet dignity, and contributed to the unbroken chain of life, a silent testament to his quiet endurance and the profound meaning found in simplicity. The warmth of the hearth, the scent of wood smoke, the soft murmur of conversations, and the gentle touch of a grandchild's hand were his greatest comforts. He would observe his descendants with a quiet pride, seeing in them the continuation of his own story, the echoes of generations past. He might offer a quiet word of advice when sought, a gentle caution, or a simple affirmation, his wisdom distilled from decades of observing the rhythms of the earth and the complexities of human nature. His presence was a silent anchor, a connection to the deep roots of their lineage, providing a sense of stability and continuity in a world that, though slow to change, was never entirely static. He was the living history of their family, a quiet repository of their past, and a gentle reminder of the enduring values that had sustained them through hardship and joy. The younger ones, though busy with their own lives, instinctively understood the profound importance of his presence, recognizing the quiet strength and deep wisdom that emanated from him. His passing, when it finally came, would be as quiet and gentle as his arrival. There would be no grand pronouncements, no elaborate or noisy ceremonies, only the soft, mournful tolling of the church bell, its sound carrying gently across the fields, a lament for a soul departed. Just a gentle fading, a quiet transition from this world, like a candle flickering out after a long burn, surrounded by the soft sorrow and quiet reverence of his loved ones, their hands perhaps holding his, their quiet farewells a comfort whispered softly, a final connection. His body would be gently washed with care, shrouded in simple linen, and then carried on a plain wooden bier to the village church for a last, peaceful blessing from Father Michael, or his quiet successor, his voice a steady murmur of prayer and comfort, commending his soul to God. Then, to the quiet, sacred ground of the churchyard, where he would be laid to rest, his body softly returning to the very earth he had patiently cared for, toiled on, and deeply loved throughout his long, quiet life, becoming one with the land again. His grave, marked perhaps by a simple wooden cross, would be a humble testament to a life lived fully and deeply within the rhythms of nature and community, a quiet presence among his ancestors, another silent guardian of the soil that sustained them all. The sorrow of his passing would be deep, yet it would be a sorrow tinged with peace, an understanding that he had lived a full and complete life. The quiet gathering of the community for his funeral would be a testament to the respect and affection he had garnered over his many years. They would carry him gently, reverently, through the familiar lanes of Oakhaven, past the fields he had worked, the trees he had seen grow, the homes where he had shared laughter and tears. Each step of the procession would be a quiet acknowledgement of his enduring connection to the land and its people. As he was lowered into the earth, the soft sounds of prayer and the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze would be the only accompaniment. A simple farewell to a simple man who had lived an extraordinary ordinary life. The earth would receive him back into its embrace, a fitting end for one who had lived so intimately with its cycles. Thomas's life, though unrecorded in the grand chronicles of kings, queens, and nobles, unseen by the wider world, was a beautiful, enduring testament to the gentle human spirit. It was a life profoundly shaped by honest, tireless work, by the peaceful and unwavering rhythm of nature, by the deep, unbreakable bonds of family and community, which provided his strength and solace, and by a quiet, steady, unwavering faith that guided his days and illuminated his path. His story is the story of millions, a soft whisper from the distant past, reminding us of the quiet strength, the profound dignity, and the deep, enduring kindness that flowed through the lives of the medieval peasant. His legacy was not in monuments of stone, but in the fertile soil that continued to yield its bounty for generations, in the enduring village that continued to thrive and adapt, its people living on, and in the gentle, unbroken continuation of life itself through his children and their children. His memory lived on, not in books, but in the quiet traditions, the shared tasks, and the very ground of Oakhaven, a timeless echo in the gentle breeze that rustled through the fields, a lasting part of the earth itself. He was a silent guardian, a profound example of how immense meaning can be found in the seemingly mundane. His existence proved that true richness lay not in accumulated possessions or power, but in the depth of one's connections, the steadfastness of one's purpose, and the quiet dignity with which one embraced the ebb and flow of life. He embodied the soul of Oakhaven, the spirit of enduring humanity that quietly toiled, loved, and found profound contentment in the simple, yet profound, act of living. His life was a gentle testament to the quiet heroism of ordinary folk, a reminder that the most impactful stories are often those whispered from one generation to the next, carried not in grand tomes, but in the steady beat of a loving heart, the warmth of a shared hearth, and the enduring strength of a community bound by common purpose and unspoken understanding. His gentle memory, woven into the very fabric of the land and its people, serves as a timeless echo, a soft murmur of a life well lived, a testament to the quiet grandeur of a simple soul. Thank you for joining us on Restful Historian. Until our next story, may your thoughts be calm and your rest deep.